Let's get more now on our main news and the crash of that Air India plane bound for London seconds after it took off from the Indian city of Ahmedabad. Air India has now confirmed that of the 242 people on board, there's been only a single survivor. It's not yet known how many people were killed on the ground as the aircraft came down on a medical college hostel. Well, the crash of the Air India jet has led to huge devastation in a residential area of Ahmedabad. Firefighters were at the scene not long after the crash, but there was huge damage to a mid-rise building with signs of intense fire. The aircraft was due to fly long haul to London, and it was likely to have been carrying a significant amount of fuel when it came down. India's Minister of Home Affairs spoke a short time ago after meeting the sole survivor of the crash. Well, this was 40-year-old Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, whose family live in Leicester, and he apparently walked off the plane. He was sitting near the front of the aircraft and has now been in hospital. Let's hear from the Home Minister Amit Shah, who met him.
इस विमान में कुल मिलाकर
altogether 230 passengers, national and international citizens, and 12 crew members were on board. We have had news of one person among them surviving. I have gone to meet that person. We will give the official death toll after the DNA is taken and their identities have been confirmed by the authorities. But I have gone to see the survivor.
Amit Shah there speaking earlier. Well, let's go live to Delhi and speak to aerospace journalist Neelam Matthews. Thanks for being with us. It is early and the investigation is obviously just starting into this terrible crash. But what can we deduce from what we know as to the potential causes of this horrible accident?
While it's too early to talk about causes, there were certain issues that were quite apparent. One thing was the landing gear remained extended, and that creates excess drag, which can lead to a lower climb rate and stall rest, making altitude recovery a bit difficult. Also, one of the pilots who was on ground noticed the flap configurations were at 0 degrees when they should have been between 5 to 10 degrees. Now, at 37 degrees centigrade temperature in Ahmedabad and a full fuel load, this would result in the aircraft unable to climb.
And
we could have bird strikes that could have caused engine failure, but it's all left to be seen.
And is it likely that the black box recorders will be found, even though we saw that huge fireball?
God willing, they will be found, given that they're made for very kind of strict, they're really well designed. So they generally do encompass fire, etc. But we'll have to see till they're found. It seemed pretty charred, what we saw on television.
Oh, and what is known about the safety record of Air India? Because it was taken over, obviously, in the last few years by the Tata Group.
Yeah. Since the Tata Group has taken over, this has been the first accident and the first, unfortunately, of the 787 globally. And in 2020, Air India had an accident where about 23 people had died. And so it's basically, in a decade, we've seen 2 accidents.
And what about the record of this particular type of Boeing?
This Boeing 787 has a pretty good record. It's the first accident to happen in air, and once it had happened on land, which brought about the issue of the lithium batteries, which were causing the fires, which they have tried to fix.
And when we look at sort of airport safety and flying safety in India generally, how do you describe it? Because obviously India's a vast country. People perhaps don't realise it's the size of Western Europe and people fly a lot. That airport, Ahmedabad, is very, very popular. It's heavily used, isn't it?
India, shouldn't say surprisingly, because the fleet size has been pretty small in all these years. Now it's like accelerating to the point of no return. We do have a good safety record. And unfortunately, now we'll have to start addressing issues, safety concern issues.
And just finally, we've seen the incredible images of one man who was able to survive this crash. Is it possible to work out how one person could have walked out of this?
I can just say God had a special place in his heart for him. It was good karma. And he probably realized just on time that things were going wrong. And he was sitting near the emergency door and he wrenched it open and took a chance and just jumped out. So he was lucky.
We don't know, obviously, the details, but perhaps we will hear his account. His brother was also on board, so it's a very difficult day for his family and so many others in India and in the UK and around the world watching the events of the day. Neelam Matthews, thank you very much for being with us. Well, what more do we know about the plane involved? The aircraft that crashed, just to remind you, is a Boeing 7878 Dreamliner. The model was launched by the US manufacturer 14 years ago and started flying with Air India in 2014 with 256 seats available on board. This is the first time it's been involved in a crash like this. Just 6 weeks ago, manufacturers Boeing celebrated the craft's carrying 1 billion passengers globally. Air India operates a fleet of more than 190 planes. 58 of them are Boeing aircraft, 34 of which are believed to be Dreamliners. This is library footage of the same plane that crashed today from 2016. In a statement, Boeing CEO said, "Our deepest condolences go out to the loved ones of the passengers and crew on board Air India Flight 171, as well as everyone affected in Ahmedabad. I've spoken with Air India's chairman to offer our full support, and a Boeing team stands ready to support the investigation led by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau." Well, US and British investigators are also travelling to India to help the investigation into the crash, with specialists from across the world expected to assist. Let's speak to our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury. Michelle, we've talked a lot about Boeing over recent months and years, in fact. Was there any sort of market reaction to what's happened today?
Yeah, I mean, we saw initially when news started to emerge in pre-market trading, there was a sharp drop in the share price of both Boeing and General Electric, which makes the engines used in the 787 Dreamliner. Since then, they've sort of recovered slightly. General Electric shares down around 2% and Boeing shares around 5%. I mean, I think part of the concern is this is sort of a natural reaction you would expect to see to a tragic event like this from Wall Street. But also I think it puts the spotlight back on the company for safety issues because, of course, it has been recovering from several incidents over the last couple of years. And the airline was seen to have made quite a lot of progress. But obviously now this will be a setback.
Yeah, and obviously this is a different model to the previous ones involved in previous crashes. But how much will US investigators now get involved? Because we've heard that US and UK teams will go to India and will get involved. It will be a global investigation to a degree led by India.
Yeah, I mean, so there is a protocol here, and the investigation will be led by Indian authorities, by the government of India, but the NTSB here in America is sending a team of investigators over. Now, that team could include even people from Boeing itself. Boeing has said they were ready to lend whatever assistance was needed. You know, they're going to need people who can who have experience not just of crash scenes, complicated crash scenes, but also, for studying when they eventually recover the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. They're going to want, people who can understand what information that reveals. They're going to need people who understand the 787 in great detail to try and figure out. I mean, there are a lot of questions. Speaking to people today, they said, look, this could be an issue related to poor maintenance. It could be a mechanical issue. It could be human error. There are a lot of variables. And I think it's going to be certainly weeks before we get any answers. And so for now, there are simply sort of more questions. And I think that's why you're going to have so many people involved in this investigation. But they will take time to kind of find out exactly what happened here.